This is a discussion we should have had decades ago. The nature of what an asylum seeker is a discussion we should have had decades ago. The discussion of, for instance, how long somebody can remain an asylum seeker if, for instance, the situation in their country of origin has changed, is a discussion we should have had a long time ago. If you go to Rome, to the marketplace there are Egyptian gangs, among others, who run a lot of the marketplace there. They include people working in the black market who are Egyptian migrants who fled from previous Egyptian governments, some of whom, not all of whom, but some of whom want to return home. Okay? What is the Italian government doing about that? Nothing. There's no policy for this. There's no more policy than there is in Sweden to send back all the people who shouldn't have come last year. There's no policy for it. It's not going to happen. There is no political will for it. But these are discussions, as I say, we should have had decades ago. If, as everyone agreed, multiculturalism wasn't working in 2010 when immigration was at a comparative low point, why should it work when immigration is at an absolute historic high? It makes no sense. And as for, as it were, the moral question underneath this, I think there is a profound question here which I'm not going to be able to answer, but I can give a couple of pointers on. It's the same question as the one which is, in my view, haunting Europe, which is the question of the Jews. The question of the Jews in the Second World War. You see this all around the migration crisis. There was a very haunting example the other day in La Stampa, one of the Italian papers, talking about the route now that the Austrian-Italian border and the French-Italian borders are very, very closed. There is an increasing flow of people walking through the mountain passes in over to Switzerland from North Italy. La Stampa had it was just an average day's news, but had a quote from a local who mentioned that this was a route which, in the winter it's very dangerous, but in the summer it's passable. And just this local just mentions that's the route the Jews used in the war. Everything is infused in our very old and very guilt-ridden continent. Everything is infused with these echoes, and we worry about it, and we're right to worry about it. We're right to worry about whether or not these migrants are the same as the migrants in the Second World War. But there are all sorts of other parts of that discussion we need to have. For instance, how many of the Jews fleeing Nazi Germany, for instance, arrived in a safe country and then said, I don't find the system here so useful, I'll walk to another. Yeah. How many of those fleeing persecution before and during the Second World War were picky about it? I mean, it's a terrible thing to say, but I mean, this is a different type of movement. But the follow-on from that is this odd thing, which I say I don't have an answer to, but I can just put an idea in your head about it, which is this odd thing that, as I say, Europe is a place in which anyone in the world can come and live. I think we need to think about this and discuss this very widely and very profoundly, because otherwise, as I say, this is going to lead to all sorts of problems in the years ahead. It seems to me absolutely legitimate that the peoples of Europe should be able to have a place they call home, and that place should not be taken away from them, because after all, we don't have another choice. There's that extraordinarily haunting bit in Michel Houellebecq's Submission, which many of you will know, when talking with his Jewish girlfriend, the main character discovers she's going to go to Israel because things have got so bad in France and she's Jewish, and he says, I don't have an Israel. That is one of the most important thoughts in Europe. Now, we don't have an opt-out, we don't have a get-out, we don't have a place to run to, we don't have another deal on the side here. This is our home. And so we should think very, very deeply before giving that home up to the entire world. Because among other things, that deal will not be reciprocal. When Europeans go to another country by the millions, it's colonialism. Colonialism, thank goodness, has ended. But we haven't even begun to think of the consequences of the movement of millions of people into our home for what we agree is in perpetuity. I do not believe that it is the right of everybody in the world who wants to be in Europe to be in Europe. And it cannot be. We have, as I say, a fragile ecosystem of society, like every society, and we cannot give it over to the entire world. And if that makes us have some pangs of guilt, then that's good. We should have pangs of guilt over that. We're human beings, we're moral beings. But it should not be the case that our pangs of guilt make us destroy our societies. It's my view as a small C conservative that Edmund Burke was right in that central point of his philosophy, that a culture, a society is not simply about us here now, that it is a deal between the dead, the living, and those yet to be born, and that you cannot break that pact, and that what you have inherited you do not have the right to give away, any more than you have the right to destroy future generations of your own family or future generations yet unborn. It is a very central pact to civilization, that deal between the dead, the living, and the yet to be born. It is a central pact of civilization. And if you give it up, if you say that the yet to be born, it doesn't matter if their society represents Mogadishu more than it does downtown Stockholm, then you are breaking that pact, which may not be yours to break.
I have a horrible question to you.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.